They sense it, that shift in the atmosphere when you enter a space. It's not just intuition. It's a deep, magnetic pull they can't resist. You're not just remembered, you're tracked. But what they don't realize is that while they're watching, something greater is shielding. The same force that marked you different is the one scattering their intentions into dust before they ever reach you. You're not being paranoid. You're picking up on the residue of hidden movements. They're not just watching from a distance. Some are disguising admiration as control. But this isn't their story to write. You were called, covered, and carved out for something too sacred to be touched by chaos. And now, even their proximity is being regulated by something they can't bribe or bargain with. Every corner of your digital life has become a hunting ground for people who no longer have a seat at your table. They scan, swipe, and save with the precision of someone trying to reconstruct a puzzle that no longer includes their piece. Some are driven not by curiosity, but by obsession, hoping that a flicker of old emotion might grant them access to what they once drained. And others, they're not looking for you. They're looking for the version of you that tolerated their weight. But here's what they didn't calculate. Your silence wasn't absence. It was alchemy. You didn't vanish. You evolved. And now the tools they once used don't work anymore. The script has changed. The light around you is encrypted. And your story, it's being written in a frequency they were never meant to decode. Some people study storms only to learn how to control the wind. But when you began shifting dimensions, they stopped watching and started circling. This isn't casual curiosity. It's a strategic hunt for a frequency they no longer have access to. Certain individuals have moved beyond social guessing games into full-blown spiritual intel gathering missions, operating like shadow operatives pretending their interest is harmless. But this isn't about old memories. It's about re-entering a field they can no longer influence. And every so-called accidental run-in, it's the result of layered timing, not divine coincidence. They're adjusting their paths, aligning their schedules, and weaving themselves into spaces that used to welcome them, unaware that their time expired when your soul stopped bending to fit the old shape. No one tells you that when your energy starts to evolve, others begin crafting costumes just to sneak a glimpse of it. They're not always visible, but the pressure of their gaze becomes a hum in your spirit. Some have gone so far as to hide behind borrowed names, planting themselves in comment sections like dormant seeds, waiting for a moment of emotional opening. While others use those around you as signal relays, squeezing your name into every conversation to decode your location through context. And the most calculated among them don't need to speak your name. They watch your digital rhythm like sacred scripture, dissecting your laughter for signs of fracture. But they don't realize, what they're chasing is no longer stationary. Your evolution has become a moving flame. And only those with pure hands can touch it without getting burned. There's a strange tension in the air when deep transformation begins, like being stretched between lifetimes. Not just shifting behavior, but watching the very blueprint of your being rearranged in silence. Lately, moments have collided. You've felt stronger in ways that words can't carry, yet completely drained in the middle of that strength. You've been able to sense what's coming before it arrives, read thoughts without trying. Yet simple social contact now feels like stepping into too much noise. Places and people that once brought laughter now feel foreign, almost intrusive. And you've wondered what's wrong with you. But here's the truth. Nothing's malfunctioning. Your soul is being reassembled in real time, and that's not a process the old world can understand. The signals haven't been subtle. Every time your body pulled back without warning, every time you bailed on plans last minute, every time your chest tightened just thinking about being around people you used to enjoy, it wasn't random. It was your internal warning system working without needing permission from your conscious mind. And still, logic tried to argue. But logic doesn't speak the language of evolution. This wasn't fear. This wasn't overreaction. This was alignment calling you out of reach. The timings you questioned, the sudden instincts you doubted, they weren't glitches. They were instructions. Instructions written in a spiritual tongue, decoded only through trust. A full-scale energetic defense has been in place for you, not metaphorically, but systemically. Invisible layers of recalibration surrounding you like the hush before lightning strikes. While old patterns attempted to reach in, and people who once depended on your glow circled with smiling faces and hungry intentions, something higher guarded the shift. It didn't allow interruption. It closed doors that looked like opportunities. It canceled moments that seemed important. Not to isolate you, but to protect the architecture being constructed within. Because your mind may not have known the danger, but your light did. And that light was not willing to risk itself again. There are energies that feed off access, not just physical closeness, but emotional entanglement. And those forces? They felt the change before even you fully did. That's why they began pressing in harder, in subtler, more complicated ways. Through false urgency, through layered guilt, through emotional tricks wrapped in nostalgia. But you weren't left unguarded. Every time you didn't answer that call, every time you vanished instead of explaining, every time you felt weird for trusting your gut, something sacred was preserved. And what you may have mistaken as weakness was actually divine authority setting new terms. You're not outgrowing your life, you're exceeding the original framework. The heaviness isn't depression. It's spiritual labor. You're not missing out, you're being retuned. Reality is quieter now not because it abandoned you, but because you're tuning into frequencies no one around you can hear yet. And those who still try to find the old you, they're searching for a door that no longer exists. What's building inside you is ancient, cosmic. A new calibration meant for a destiny that was never meant to survive under the conditions you've already outgrown. Let the silence do its work. Let the distance finish its sentence. The becoming has already begun. There are days where everything seems to go wrong for no obvious reason. A wave of minor irritations crashing against your peace. People who treat you like a personal inconvenience. Systems that seem built to trap you in emotional loops. Tasks that should take minutes suddenly stretched into hours of delay and confusion. It's tempting to call it coincidence or a streak of bad luck. But this isn't randomness. These moments are orchestrated distractions designed to wear you thin, to chip away at your rhythm, to drain your ability to stay in alignment. Something behind the curtain knows how powerful you are when you're centered, so it keeps aiming for your edges. Some people didn't love you. They depended on your energy the way a cracked phone depends on someone else's charger. They grew comfortable soaking in your stillness while tossing chaos at your feet. These weren't just emotionally needy individuals. They were experts at disguising consumption as connection. The moment you began to evolve, their access began to shrink, and they noticed. Their connection to your light had become their primary way of avoiding their own inner shadows. So, they'd script subtle emergencies, emotional breakdowns timed like rehearsals, all to make sure you stayed plugged into their drama. Not because they needed you, but because without you, they'd be forced to confront their own silence. You've had conversations that looked calm on the surface but left you feeling like you ran an emotional marathon. People who speak kindly but leave you depleted. They're not always obvious. In fact, the most skilled emotional siphons are the ones who smile the most, compliment the deepest, and appear the most supportive. But underneath the smiles are unspoken agreements. You hold their weight, they offer praise just enough to keep you from noticing. You weren't in a relationship, you were in a transaction. And even if it felt mutual, you walked away more tired than you arrived, every time. These encounters taught you to doubt yourself. To question whether it's selfish to step away. To believe that being there for people means setting yourself on fire to warm those who won't build their own flame. But here's the shift. Those lingering feelings of guilt are just leftover programming. You were conditioned to see love as sacrifice. But real love doesn't leave you drained. And protection doesn't always look like armor. Sometimes it looks like a closed door, a missed call, or the sudden desire to be somewhere else entirely. This isn't about resentment, it's about awareness. You're not meant to carry what doesn't belong to you. The shift you're going through is forcing every hidden exchange to become visible. And while they scramble to regain a seat in your energy field, what they don't realize is that your table has moved, and it's no longer set for those who feed but never bring anything to share. The power you carry isn't just healing, it's rare. And from this moment on, it belongs to you first. When the energy source they once depended on goes silent, chaos fills the gap. Now that your presence is no longer within reach, many are discovering that their emotional foundation was never their own. It was borrowed from your light. Their ability to move through daily life with ease is deteriorating because the comfort they mistook for stability was simply the overflow of your being. Sleepless nights, scattered thoughts, and emotional spirals now haunt those who once anchored their peace to your frequency. Instead of looking inward, they project outward. They label your growth as abandonment, your silence as cruelty, and your distance as betrayal. But what they're truly confronting is the hollow space where your energy used to hold everything together. Some are spiraling not out of love but out of desperation. They've grown so accustomed to feeding on your empathy that its absence now feels like withdrawal. And in that void, they're beginning to scramble. From artificial emergencies to calculated guilt trips, their attempts to reach you aren't rooted in care, they're bids for access. They study your presence online, hoping to spot an emotional crack they can slip through. They've even entertained the idea of physically inserting themselves back into your world, dressing their intrusion as a plea for guidance. But they don't want your help, they want your energy. Because while you've been rebuilding, they've been unraveling without the warmth they took for granted. Others aren't chasing your heart, they're chasing control. These are the ones who never wanted love. They wanted leverage. Your freedom dismantled their sense of dominance. And now, behind the rehearsed apologies and fake concern, they're sharpening old tactics with new intensity. They know which strings used to move you. They remember how you questioned your own truth when they twisted the narrative. And now, they're hoping that a well-placed word, a strategic reminder, or a familiar emotional push might pull you back into orbit. But this time, the version of you they knew no longer exists. Their manipulation scripts are outdated. You've changed the language of your being, and they can't read the new code. There's also a different type, those who don't fully understand why they're drawn to you, only that they are. These individuals mistake proximity for healing, believing that being near your light will somehow complete what's broken within them. But what they're truly seeking isn't you. It's their unlived potential. They want to feel whole by standing next to someone who already radiates wholeness. They chase moments they can't name, hoping you'll offer clarity for confusion they haven't even begun to untangle. To them, your growth looks like a shortcut. They fantasize that merging with you will rewrite their story, not realizing the cost of bypassing their own transformation. And in their obsession, some have started breaching boundaries under the illusion of fate. But obsession is not alignment. And your evolution is not a remedy for someone else's fear of change. All of these energies, the desperate, the controlling, and the confused, orbit you now not because you're accessible, but because you're becoming. What they once consumed freely is now protected by fire. The roles you used to play in their lives have expired. What was once emotional convenience is now sacred distance. You are not their cure, their counselor, or their supply. You are something far more dangerous to the systems that relied on your softness. You are self-contained. And that, to them, is the greatest threat of all. There are individuals who don't simply admire your light, they strategize around it. Their intentions aren't loud or clumsy. They're built on research, rehearsal, and long-term positioning. These aren't casual observers. They're quiet tacticians who measure your silence, track your rhythms, and rehearse smiles in mirrors. Not because they care, but because proximity to your glow would camouflage their voids. Their movements are rehearsed, their timing intentional. They manufacture closeness, not out of connection, but for elevation. Being seen beside you, mentioned by you, or aligned with your rise grants them false credibility. They shift wardrobes, rewrite personal stories, and craft whole identities, not to meet you, but to merge with a narrative that makes them matter through association. Every retreat you've made was never random. It was training, spiritual drills under pressure. You were being conditioned to sense danger long before it speaks, to feel dishonesty before it's visible. All those silent months weren't about hiding, they were about refining. You were being equipped to spot camouflage, fake empathy, strategic vulnerability, praise with a purpose. Your time alone carved out the kind of discernment that can't be taught, only earned. What felt like loss was armor being fitted. What looked like isolation was spiritual boot camp. Every false invitation you declined, every nice person you walked away from, those were battles you didn't even know you were winning. The manipulation has gotten more complex, because the stakes are higher now. As your frequency rises, so do the methods aimed to intercept it. These energies no longer rely on direct confrontation. They weave suggestion into your thoughts, confusion into your clarity. Some attacks arrive through external drama. Others enter as quiet questions in your own mind. Am I imagining this? Am I being too closed off? But that internal fog isn't yours. It's coded doubt designed to make you lean outward, into people, opinions, and comfort zones you've already outgrown. And the moment you look for validation outside yourself, they're ready, waiting to offer clarity in exchange for access. There are subtler waves too, moments where your body reacts before your logic does. Headaches with no medical cause. Dreams that feel like intrusions. Emotions that spike without a trigger. This isn't imagination, it's interference. Forces that attempt to shake your focus the moment momentum builds. Distractions dressed as emergencies. Delays disguised as lessons. What they're trying to create is fatigue. Not just physical, but energetic. Because a tired soul is easier to mislead. But now you know, the discomfort isn't the sign to stop. It's proof that you're touching territory they can't control. The beauty of all this chaos is what it reveals. Your presence isn't passive, it's powerful. You're not just surviving interference, you're outgrowing it. The very schemes built to derail your path are now testifying to your elevation. Because the more precise the attacks, the more obvious it becomes that your influence isn't ordinary. You carry something they can't fabricate. And the moment they realized they couldn't own it, they started trying to orbit it. But what they forgot is this. The energy you radiate comes from alignment, not attachment. And that alignment answers to something far beyond their reach. Each encounter that tried to break you was actually preparing you. What looked like chaos was a coded curriculum. One that taught you to detect misaligned intentions before they ever formed words. Isolation didn't shrink you. It fortified you. It trained your instincts to respond before your mind could even form a question. The stillness you've endured wasn't a pause. It was the construction site of your future self. And now, you're walking with a clarity that doesn't ask for permission, carrying a frequency that no longer tolerates distortion. Every layer of your new awareness was built by the storms you refused to let drown you. This transformation wasn't about hiding. It was about becoming unreachable to anything that once drained you. As your interior shifted, the landscape around you was rewritten. The ones searching for a doorway into your world will soon realize they're knocking on walls that don't exist anymore. They're scanning for signs of the version of you that dissolved in silence. But what's emerging isn't a return. It's a rebirth, one that's governed by rules no longer based in people-pleasing, fear, or compromise. You don't have to defend your peace anymore. It's now protected by design, built into the architecture of your spirit. The pursuit continues, but it's no longer relevant. The ones who still attempt to find you are operating from a blueprint that expired. Their chase leads to empty corridors, echoes of who you were, not reflections of who you are. They'll follow trails that disappear into ash, unaware that while they're stuck in memory, you've stepped into motion. You are no longer the one hiding. You're the one rising, visible only to those aligned with your frequency. What used to make you a target now makes you a guide. And your presence is reserved for those who've done the work to meet you in truth. There are former connections who have transformed into quiet observers. People who once shared laughter but now exchange glances behind digital curtains. Some are collecting whispers from your past, trading theories about your present, and piecing together fragments from half-seen stories. They collaborate not out of love, but out of curiosity fueled by absence. They analyze locations, search patterns, and decode what isn't said. But they forget, this is no longer about proximity, it's about resonance. And proximity without alignment will always feel like a locked door with no key. What was once casual curiosity has escalated into calculated surveillance. Attempts to map your path, replicate your movement, or re-enter your orbit are intensifying, but they're chasing illusions. Because now, the access they seek no longer lives in visibility. It lives in vibration. They try to reconstruct a presence that was never about aesthetics. It was always about essence. And that essence has moved into terrain where manipulation, entitlement, and false alignment can't survive. You're not just harder to reach. You've become untouchable in all the ways that truly matter. Some don't confront you directly. They move around you, twisting the air behind your back. They sow confusion where clarity once lived. These aren't random gossips or accidental misunderstandings. They're intentional distortions, planted to unravel the people who protect you. With carefully phrased concerns and strategic pauses, they implant doubt, not to help, but to fracture the bonds you depend on. The goal isn't truth. It's fragmentation. Because when your circle breaks, your guard lowers. And in that space, they believe they can step in, masked as comfort, hidden as allies. But they miscalculated. What they see as weakness was actually surveillance. You were watching, too. In the shadows of your healing, a system began forming. Not random contacts, a rotating cast. They show up when you're vulnerable, vanish when you regain balance. One drains your joy, the other offers false comfort. It's not just manipulation, it's coordination. They time their appearances like performers in a ritual, hoping to create enough emotional noise to make you forget what silence taught you. But your new self can feel patterns before they form. And now, what used to pass as coincidence registers as a warning. They know you're going to step back into the world eventually, so now they prepare. Not with healing, but with strategy. They study your movements, habits, passions, not to celebrate them, but to mimic them. They're not following paths of growth, they're designing imitations. And when you least expect it, they'll show up at places that reflect who you're becoming, wearing masks made of your past preferences. It won't feel like danger. It will feel familiar. That's the point. The ambush isn't loud, it's dressed in warmth. But the timing is too perfect. The tone just slightly off. It's not real, it's rehearsal. Others craft emotional emergencies like plays with rehearsed urgency. They pretend someone close to you is in danger, hoping panic will override intuition. They'll send word through third parties, frame it as concern, and hope your empathy reactivates old wiring. But they don't know, your instinct has been reprogrammed. You no longer run toward every scream. You now listen deeper, to what's beneath the performance. And this time, you'll recognize the hollow ring in the alarm. They didn't disappear, they've evolved. But so have you. While they studied your soft spots, you were mastering discernment. While they rehearsed their openings, you were fortifying your spirit. You're not just prepared, you're encoded now with safeguards they can't decode. They're still playing chess, thinking you're a piece. But you're the board now, and the rules have changed. Unseen forces have been working silently behind the curtain of your everyday life, not just shielding you, but actively reprogramming the routes of your destiny. These protections don't just block, they misdirect. While some search rooms you never entered, you're led through exits no one saw appear. They follow rumors, not realizing those whispers were planted for their ears alone. You're not hiding. You've been cloaked, moved by intuition disguised as impulse, rerouted by an intelligence that speaks in gut feelings and strange delays. What they call luck is actually precision. And what feels like your indecision is actually your guidance system overriding danger before you can name it. When they attempt to dig into your data, their tools start to falter. Their screens show glitches, not because the systems failed, but because your energy can't be tracked by machinery designed to measure noise, not essence. They try to analyze you, but the more they search, the less they understand. Their algorithms fail not from errors, but because they were never designed to read soul frequency. The digital veil has been rewritten in your favor, and access is now denied to those not aligned. They scroll, tap, search, but your presence only reveals itself to those whose intentions won't corrode your atmosphere. Their obsession has spilled beyond reason. Conversations you've never started now ripple through spaces you never occupied. People who barely shared air with you suddenly feel a pull to speak your name, to guess your whereabouts, to theorize your next step as if their survival depends on it. Former co-workers scan your timelines with the urgency of someone searching for a map. Some reach out under false identities, hoping proximity to your glow might somehow clarify their confusion. But your light isn't a shortcut, and they're about to learn that access without resonance only deepens the ache. Meanwhile, those who once fed on your emotional clarity have begun to erode without it. Their symptoms are real, but their origins are not physical. The fatigue they carry is the echo of a frequency they can't find anymore. They try to connect to others, but it's not enough. Your energy wasn't just soothing, it was stabilizing. And now that their system can't recalibrate through you, they're unraveling. Not from cruelty, but from consequence. Because healing was never yours to give indefinitely. And without that lifeline, they find themselves ghost hunting, chasing shadows of conversations and snapshots of memories, hoping to reconnect to something they themselves refuse to nurture. Desperation has pushed some beyond boundaries, showing up where they know you're no longer present, spinning stories laced with guilt, faking urgency to trigger your past instincts. They construct identities that bend around your history, infiltrate the lives of those close to you, and fish for fragments. But all they find is silence. Because the access point they seek no longer exists. The version of you they once fed on has evaporated, and in its place stands a being governed by laws no amount of manipulation can decode. You've become encrypted, guarded by a blueprint not of this world. And their tactics, once successful, now return to them empty.